Welcome to the Epic presentation of the new Unreal Audio engine. So I am Aaron McLeran. I'm the audio programmer at Epic. I like to say the audio programmer, although my title is technically senior. That implies there's a junior audio programmer somewhere, which there isn't. My co-presenter is Dan Reynolds. He's my audio QA, but he's so much more than audio QA. He's been absolutely instrumental in my efforts to get this thing out the door. He's made, yeah, put your Twitter picture on there. I didn't tell him I was gonna do that. So he's made hundreds of test maps where we can isolate each and every feature in the audio engine, the old audio engine, and make sure it works in the new audio engine, and has done tons of work on the demos that we're about to present. And I'm gonna give you a quick background of myself so you know where I'm coming from if you don't know who I am. My background in academia is physics and music. I studied jazz and composition and did astrophysics at one point in graduate school, at which point I wanted to get into computer music and then kind of fell into the game industry by being a mad scientist with procedural music. My first game gig was on Spore in 2008 and have been basically doing crazy game audio stuff since then. I think it was 2007 actually. And a couple years ago, I took a gig at Epic with the directive to rewrite the audio engine. And so what that meant was up to me, and this is sort of a presentation of what the history of that, sort of the which I should go on the next slide, the history of what the audio engine is, what it was, where I came up with what I wanted to do, which is what I'll present today. The next step is where things are right now, that is with 4.15 and Robo Recall, which is the first game that uses the new audio engine, and where things are going to be in the future. That's 4.16, 4.17, and beyond. I decided to sort of set this in the context of like what's great, what's not so great, what's really terrible. This is sort of the history portion of the talk. So what's good? This picture right here is the sound cue from UDK, if you've ever used UDK. Sound cues were way ahead of their time. It was awesome. There's, I think UE4 was on the cutting edge of a lot of audio, or UDK was on the cutting edge of audio. Gears of War sounds awesome. Lots of AAA games shipped with the built-in audio engine. So there's a lot of deep shared knowledge. Tons of people out there in the world know how UE4 audio works. Sorry, I keep saying UE4, but Unreal Engine audio works. And so it's shipped lots of games, it's battle tested, it has tons and tons of features, so it's all really good things. The bad, this is a same picture. I saw that picture on the internet of a sound cue, and I was like, dude, I can just make this into a UE4 sound cue exactly the same way. If you notice, the only difference here is it goes to the left here and goes to the right here. the node structure. So the bad is that it's actually falling behind. I think there's, everybody can agree that Epic hasn't been keeping pace with all the developments in game audio. There's a lot of really cool stuff happening in middleware that, in other game engines that just there hasn't been a lot of support for. There hasn't been a ton of work in tools and workflow. There's been no support or love in the DSP domain, that's effects, Submix effects, or synthesis. And it's been really difficult for third parties to get their stuff into UE4, into the audio engine. So that's been sort of keeping it behind. And where it really gets ugly is the fact that to fix all of those other bad things has huge, it becomes a huge problem because of the massive amount of platform dependencies. We have I'll have some more slides on this in detail, but we have a lot of different platforms. Each of them basically have their own audio engine. As a result, although we do have a pretty deep feature set, it's not supported equally in all our platforms. Anybody who's tried to implement a game in UE4 in Android has learned the horrifying fact that, for example, Android doesn't support 3D audio at all, no pitch shifting, and et cetera. And as a result, also, new feature development has to be done many, many different times and many different platforms. And when you do get a feature working on a different platform, it's not necessarily going to sound the same as it does on another platform, so there's platform consistency issues. All of these things are nightmares for sound designers. So I gave you already a couple examples. I mentioned Android, but there's one that I remember. So I was new at Epic. I had a Jira to look at performance issue on Macintosh, the Mac platform. We're trying to ship Fortnite on Mac, and audio just seems to be taking up a ton of CPU time, and I've cracked open the code, this brand new employee, start looking at things, and I was drinking coffee at the time, and I literally like spit my coffee out when I saw the code. Is literally creating a new instance of reverb for every source. So anybody who's been an audio programmer, it's like a really cool thing to have 4 reverbs maybe running. Like fmodx, for example, has 4 nested reverbs. And here we were running with a unique reverb for every single source. Like, hey guys, I think I found the performance bottleneck here. Unfortunately, fixing that would require completely redoing our Mac implementation, so I just sliced it out and said, I'm going to delete this code anyways, so sorry, guys. I already mentioned Android. There's no DSP support on Linux or HTML5 or a bunch of our other platforms. And that means like the limited DSP that we had wasn't supported. So we didn't have much DSP to begin with. And it wasn't supported on a bunch of other platforms. And also, this is a big one. There's a whole bunch more than this. These are just ones I wanted to highlight. Probably, I'd say every week or every other week, I get either a forum post or a UDN. UDN is our Unreal Developer Network, or even internally, maybe 4 or 5 times the same person says, hey, when I switch audio devices, the audio just stops working in the game. And I'm like, yeah, no. sorry, bro. And so fixing this, you'd think it would be a simple thing to solve, but it should be. So you'd think it should be, and it is actually. I agree that it should be simple to fix, but it's not. So rather than fixing it in the old audio engine, I do actually support the new audio engine, but that's an example of a painful, ugly thing. All right, so when I first started at Epic, I came in with a kind of negative perception, I think, about, despite all the positive things I said, I came in thinking, like, I just need to wipe it clean and start over, like, nuke from orbit all of the features and just do it from scratch, create it in my own image, kind of a thing. And that's awesome. I mean, that's like a dream, but it would take, 10 years probably, or maybe not that long, but a really long time to just completely rethink about everything. You also have the issue of tons of games that are all the stuff I was saying about the deep shared knowledge about how audio works in the Unreal Engine. You have tons of games that exist with all these features, including our own Paragon, for example. I worked on that for 6 months, and I made a bunch of features on it, and I was like, I don't want to redo those features, and I don't want to force all of our content people to redo everything for all of our games. So this is not a clean slate. I say there's the new audio engine. All of the features exist, and it's not a clean slate. Because of this whiteboard, I didn't want to have to rewrite all of these equations from scratch again. So, by the way, I do have a note here I didn't mention. This decision to not be a clean slate was made after GDC last year. So I've been at Epic for 2 years. I'd say the first 3 or 4 months at Epic, I was like, clean slate. And I actually worked for 2 months with that objective, typing against it, going like, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. And then I got put on Paragon for about 6 or 7 months, which kind of got off around December of last year, before last year's GDC. And then at GDC, I realized there's no way I can replace this all. And so almost all of the work that you're seeing is basically post-GDC last year, so about 1 year of work. OK, so before I get into what the new audio engine, there may be a lot of new people who don't know the feature set, or maybe there's some people who haven't been paying attention to Unreal Engine for a while and don't really know what the feature set is. So I'm going to quickly go through the feature set, just highlight a couple things. So this one, I'm actually kind of proud about it. I think it's an interesting thing like that UE4 supports, and I call it like sort of time to sound, how fast you can get a sound from the desktop into the game, into your engine. I think it's kind of neat. You just drag it off the desktop, drag it into your world, push play, and you have audio in your game. Of course, it's not the most amazing implementation, but it's cool. That's a really cool feature, and I would consider it a feature. I mentioned sound cues already. I think sound cues are a significant thing. I want to make sure that that's supported. I would recommend, after this GDC, after all this work on the engine, I'm going to switch to sort of more tutorial education mode. And I would suggest for people who are used to using sound cues that Blueprint, I think, has surpassed sound cues capabilities in terms of the complex sound design. So if you're a sound designer out there who hasn't really dug into blueprints and has been using sound cues, I highly recommend learning blueprints. That said, sound cues are still a powerful tool. This is an example of an insane sound cue that no one should ever put in their game. But I literally made this because it looked cool, and I was like, oh, this is going to be neat to zoom around in a GIF. So the other feature that we have is sound classes and mix matrices. We have a pretty sophisticated sound class hierarchy and a mixing system. It's one of the few poorly understood features that needs a lot more tutorials and stuff to help people wrap their head around it. But it is a very sophisticated, very powerful mixing system. This is a GIF just to show you how it looks in the sound class graph that was actually used on Robo Recall. This is a shipped game sound class graph. So you can see that it's quite complex. Oh, and I just want to say on the mix matrices. So a lot of games have, mixing is an ambiguous term that means different things to different people. I generally like to think of it as a volume mixing, but this actually does volume and an EQ system, and it has a priority system to trigger EQ, and I call it a mix matrix rather than a mix stack. So some of you audio programmers out there might know what the distinction is. Basically, you can have any number of mixes applied that affect these sound cues, and which is a very useful way to do mixing. I would obviously not have time to go into detail. We have a lot of features for 3D audio. That thing on the left there that you can't see any of the parameters, it's a ton of parameters on setting and customizing how your 3D audio works. You can, in real time, see the effect of attenuation curves, setting different attenuation shapes. You have a bunch of stuff to set like listener-based focus. It's a ton of features, and there's a ton more in the new audio engine. I'm not going to go through all of these, but basically there's a ton of features. It's a fully featured AAA quality audio engine with a couple deficiencies that I'd mentioned. So I didn't want to basically rethink all of this from the scratch. So basically, this is the module diagram of how, just so where you know where these features live, this kind of helps you to put in context what it is that I did. And when you see some cool demos, which I promise I'll get to, you'll have a better idea of what they mean and where they come from. And you're going to be like, whoa, that sounds crazy. But you can put it into context. So this is, at the highest level, you have projects. This is when you make a new project, it actually creates a DLL, a new module, and you can add features all you want to the audio engine there. Plugins work, I would call in this level. Maybe you would have a separate module for plugin module, but in terms of hierarchy of where things are in level, I'd consider that at a project level. Then you have, and that's where blueprints live and everything. And then you have the engine module, which is where all the higher level features, I would call them higher level features, like the sound class system, the mix system, the attenuation stuff. All of that lives in the engine module, and that's multi-platform. Then you have all of the stuff that depends on platforms, and there's a ton of stuff, and that's the problem. That lives in the platform module. These are literally all of the platform modules that exist. We have an X-Audio 2 module, NGS2 module, Core Audio, and audio separate. You'd think that maybe Core Audio and audio units, which is an iOS thing, would be related. Core Audio is the Mac Audio API if you're not an audio programmer. There's OpenAL for Linux and HTML5, and then there's OpenSL ES for Android. So these are all very deep. This is like the number of audio engines that exist in UE4, and that's where all of the actual audio engine lives. That's what I would call the audio engine. And that's where the DSP, that's digital signal processing, sample rate conversion, decoding, the actual spatialization, any kind of like hardcore plugin support features like HRTF. HRTF is the head-related transfer function, if you don't know, for binaural audio. Anything that interacts with the device, like querying device capabilities, how to spatialize to individual speakers, all that stuff lives on all these different platforms. So going from that to making a new audio engine, it's good to talk about design pillars. So I've already hinted at these, but just to summarize them, backwards compatibility and everything. I want people to be able to switch to the new audio engine without changing any content. Like literally launch with a command line and just, it works. Painless, so thus you don't have to do anything to update your content. And then from the beginning, I have to think about architecturally supporting third-party extensions, user-created DSP synthesis, submix effects, and all that kind of stuff. And have the absolute bare minimum of code needed per platform. You still need platform-dependent code. That's primarily right here. I'll show you device interaction. So you see at the bottom here, you still have platform dependencies, but it's just like getting access to the device and then feeding audio to it. The rest of it is pushed up into a multi-platform layer. So you still have the game-level features, blueprints, et cetera, higher-level features, and then you have your multi-platform audio engine that is all shared across all platforms. All right, so this is the present state of things. The Robo Recall, this is actually kind of an interesting story about making the decision to ship on Robo Recall. It's Epic's first VR game. It had been under development for, I'd say, less than a year. I didn't write the audio engine for Robo Recall. It just was a happy sort of alignment of timings. So around December, I was talking to my lead, and he was like, hey, when's the new audio engine going to be done? And I said, well, it's pretty much getting done now. I can start like rolling it out. We'd been testing it on our other games like Paragon and Fortnite. And he's like, well, we probably should ship a game with this before licensees get a hold of it, because it's going to be harder to fix bugs through UDN and through forums, because you know there's going to be bugs. And so that's a good idea. He's like, well, Robo Recall shipping in like a month. Do you think it's ready for that? And I was like, let's do it. So Dan, this is why Dan has been absolutely crucial, because I could say with confidence that it was working pretty well, because we had been testing it like crazy, every single feature, right? And so one day we decided to just flip the switch, check it in, so it's on. We had been doing it like locally. You can do -audio mixer, I'll have a slide on that, to just test it out locally. And then we just checked it in, and we had warned the audio team, hey, we're gonna flip the switch, so just listen for anything weird, see what happens. And we checked it in, and a week later, Zach Leak, our audio director, is like, hey, when are you gonna flip the switch on the audio mixer? We flipped it a week ago. And they didn't notice, which is a huge, I mean, on the one hand, you're like, it should just magically make everything amazing, but the goal was to just have it work, you know, like no one notices the difference, right? And then you have pure additional wins that I'll talk about in a second. But anyway, so switching was painless, no content had to be remade. There was a whole bunch of bugs that I fixed, about 2 or 3 weeks, where it was like maybe 20 or 30 JIRAs just like pumping out the bug fixes. And it was awesome. And we were able, you know, of course, everything was silent for like a month, and then we're like, we're shipping tomorrow, and then you know, it's like all the last minute optimizations and bug fixes. So it was great to be able to do that. So you've probably seen videos of Robo Recall. I wanted to show some videos. I asked our technical sound designer, Seth Whedon, who we just hired full time as a technical sound designer. I said, hey Seth, can you make some slides of stuff? Like think of this as like a sound design demo of the cool stuff that you think is awesome. So these are videos I had Seth make. So.
Slugger mob, like that they had handles. That's fine. I need that. No!
So one of the cool things in Robo Recall, Seth made that system in Blueprint that does the physics interaction. One of the things I really liked about it is how it demonstrates the sort of tight sound design you can get when you combine direct in-engine implementation with sound design. So the next video is more of a combat. That was like sort of a white box, just demoing interaction without tons of crazy stuff going on. Like most things you're going to see of Robo Recall is going to have about 6,000 things trying to play audio. That was like just focus on the interaction. This is a more of a traditional sort of video of gameplay.
Not good. Not good. It's happy to serve. Stop it. Hey, easy. You got it. You got me.
So it's pretty cool. Another cool thing to play when you check out Robo Recall is Seth wrote an interactive music system, again, all in blueprints. And one of the cool things that the new audio engine has, actually let's go to the next slide. One of the cool things is that it has better timing. So a lot of complaints that we had was when I play sounds in blueprints, like maybe a bunch of sounds on the same frame, they would not necessarily trigger at the same time in the audio engine. That was fixed trivially. It's one of the issues with X-Audio 2 and how X-Audio 2 was implemented. But the point is that it enabled us to be able to do an interactive music system that's kind of a traditional stitching sort of thing that's based on gameplay. And he actually also wrote all the music. So it's kind of neat to have the composer writing in Blueprint and be able to test cool new features. So the Robo Recall has so this is sort of like the current state of things that if you're in 4.15, you can try it out. So it has all the old features. It has a brand new, written from scratch, new reverb and EQ, which is pretty awesome. If you saw my live stream, we demoed the reverb, and I'll have a live demo of it in a second. It has finally full 7.1 surround sound support. That was another thing that wasn't supported before. I redid how the panning works. Surprisingly, in X-Audio 2, the panning is a linear-based panner. Mine is a more, it's, in my opinion, a better panning algorithm. So I think in surround sound, it sounds much more highly resolved in terms of localization. There's tons more configuration options for surround sound. You can define where your speakers are in around you, so you can say, like, actually, my speaker's here, because obviously in surround sound spatialization. This, by the way, Robo Recall is a headphone type game, but so I'm talking about surround sound. I'm not saying Robo Recall has surround sound, but this is sort of the feature set that is in Robo Recall if Robo Recall was a surround sound game. Anyways, it has full surround sound support. Like, you can specify exactly where your speaker locations are, and that could theoretically be hooked up to a user configuration. Let's see, it supports audio device hot swapping, which turned out to be awesome for VR, because you want to maybe switch back and forth. I want to be able to extend, well, I'll talk about future features later. And pro audio device support. This is something that a lot of pro audio sound designers, they'll know what that means. So when you work in a game engine, like there's a, Dolby Surround, and you have to go through a traditional, what is that called? Point is that you can use your pro audio equipment for surround sound. So if you want to use it, it's off by default. It's experimental, PC only right now. It's totally risky. Lots of optimization and bug fixes went in before, or after 4.15 branched, but just use Dash Audio Mixer if you want to check it out. So I'm going to talk about the reverb a little bit because I think it's awesome. This is the new parametric reverb. Why I chose the reverb I did and why I think it's great for games. I was supposed to reduce the number of bullet points on this, but whatever. It's basically there's two components. There's an early. I'll say this: it's an awesome reverb. It's a plate reverb. The reason why I picked it is that it has a fixed cost. It doesn't get more expensive the bigger the reverb. It has dynamically modifiable parameters, so you can make small reverb and large reverbs without any kind of clicking or popping, because it doesn't change buffer sizes ever. It's really easy for sound designers to just tweak it and get it to sound good. A lot of reverbs, if you're a sound designer, a lot of them are really touchy, where it sounds like a tin can for 90% of the settings, and then you finally get it to that thing where it's like, oh, this doesn't sound like a tin can. This one, it's pretty easy to get it to sound good. I implemented it so that you can dynamically set your send levels to the reverb. You can do any kind of submix send from Blueprint arbitrarily, so you can make a crazy submix effect, but and then send your audio arbitrarily to it. In this case, it's automatically hooked up to the spatialization settings. So in that attenuation settings struct where I was talking about all the 3D audio settings, there's a new section that you can specify your dry, wet, based on distance send levels. And so it's awesome. It's a really cheap and easy way to get your reverb to sound more three-dimensional. So this is our first live demo. Apologize for all this talking up to this point. Pretty much the rest of this talk is cool live demos, I promise. So can we get a video of the machine? Maybe you need to put it on this.
Save that. Oh,
there we go. So before you push play, here, let me just set it up.
Okay.
So this is basically going to be a reverb demo. It's actually a trumpet playing, because we were trying to figure out what a cool source would be to give it a good sense of like massive, giant reverb. And the trumpet player is myself, so I thought it'd be a great way to self-aggrandizement myself. And as he gets closer, the key thing to listen to is it gets dry, and just listen to the quality of the reverb. So you see as it gets close, the reverb tail gets, you're right next to it. So it gets more reverberant the further away you get. It's a huge effect for creating a sense of three-dimensionality. And it's just a parametric reverb. So while I put this together, I was like, hey, this is a great opportunity to segue into the future of audio in UE4. So what's hooked up to this is the new DSP effects system. So Dan can dynamically just switch on some source effects. So we have a couple source effects that we can demo. The first one is a phaser effect. So you can hear it going through a phaser. And he can toggle them on and off. The next one is a ring modulator, which is a really fun effect. Also, while we're mentioning it, you notice the little shader I wrote is lighting up. I have an itch here. It keeps lighting up according to the audio. That's actually a source effect that's getting an envelope of the audio, and then in Blueprint you can register a delegate to actually get the amplitude of the audio and just drive a shader. So he's toggled it off. This is the stereo delay effect. Do we have another one? I forget. The chorus effect. So this is the chorus effect. All of these are parametrically driven, can be driven from Blueprint live and in Content Browser. So you can actually tweak your effects in the Content Browser. So he has a mode where you can toggle a timeline that's just going to make it go nuts. So this is all parametrically driven by an automatic timeline. Make it sound crazy. So it's pretty cool. Basically, we have DSP effects, and they're really easy to make. All of these effects that I just showed you are in an external plugin. They're not core to the engine. I intentionally wrote them all external to the engine to prove that it can be done, to be sort of a resource for people to check it out, how to do it, and hopefully open up DSP effects in UE4 for anybody who can write them. There isn't yet a tool that's like the material editor where you don't have to be able to write C++ to write DSP effects, but that is something that I want to think about in the future. So anybody can just have fun writing effects. Like I said, they're all modifiable in the Content Browser. They're parameterizable in Blueprint. All of these are using a DSP library that you can access. So as I make new effects, you can just grab them and modify them and tweak them and plug them together in weird ways. To make a new synthesis or source or submix effect, I added support for our template code generation. So in UE4, you can go like new C++ class and create your own stuff. I have a demo where Dan, who is not a programmer, will actually write some synthesis for you. A lot of this stuff is probably really exciting. And if you don't know how to write DSP or effects, I plan on getting more involved with doing community outreach and teaching. So these are the source effects I've written so far. Most of these were done in one weekend. So we have a virtual analog filter. That's important. It's not just a sort of biquad filter if you're a programmer. It's totally using virtual analog techniques. So it sounds better. Basically, it's better for real-time parametric control. I do have an EQ. That's a source effect, so you can go crazy. By the way, all of these can be put into a chain. There's a source effect chain, so you can just chain them up. There's a dynamics processor. A chorus, you heard the chorus, a phaser, ring modulation, stereo delay. There's a wave shaper and a bit crusher. There's a whole bunch more ones that I want to do. So there's submix effects. Submixes, I have kind of mentioned them. I haven't really explained what that is. So there's individual sources that play audio. Those are getting these source effects. Audio can get sent to a sort of submix before it goes to the final mix, and then you can apply effects on those submixes. It's kind of an optimization, so you don't have to have, for example, 64 reverbs. Because you generally just want one reverb. Reverb is typically the most expensive effect that you can do in a game engine. So there's EQ right now, a dynamics processor. You can arbitrarily add and create submixes and submix effects in whatever way you want. You connect them like a graph. So anyways, you'll be able to make those as well. So now effects are great. What about synthesis? So this is a picture of a crazy modular synthesizer. We don't have anything that's quite that crazy, but we do have a modular synthesizer. So why do we want to do synthesis for games? It's huge potential for transforming and modulating audio in real time. It's the definition of procedural audio. Give me a second. exciting. So you have procedural music, now you have literal procedural audio. You can create tighter integrations like you can never before with gameplay and graphics. You can iterate quickly because you can do your sound design in the context that you're trying to sound design for. It's great, obviously, for procedural music. Most procedural music systems are still sample-based unless you're doing some kind of PD kind of interaction with a game. PD is a whole language for audio. It opens up the possibility for what's a branch of synthesis called physical modeling, which is great for VR and sort of going in that direction. I consider this to go into the direction of what I would like to think about as audio shaders. Technically, it's not a shader. I'm still doing all this on the CPU. But that's a thing that I would like to look into is how to do more of this stuff on GPU. So the first synthesizer I'm going to demonstrate is a subtractive modular synthesizer. Before I show you this crazy UI, if you're new to this is the sort of thing to keep in mind so you don't get intimidated by all the knobs and sliders. But basically, all a subtractive synthesizer is some sources that generate sound, oscillators. That's the OS1, OSC1, OSC2. Typically, you can change it to be like a sine wave, square wave, triangle wave, sawtooth, or noise. It's sort of the standard. But you can also do wavetable source generation. Wavetable is just like an arbitrary drawn waveform. Anyways, the point is that you create that, this creating like a buzzing sound. I'm going to totally do this. Zzz, like it would make a zzz. That would be the source generation. And then you go through a filter that subtracts audio from that. So the filter might go zzz. So that's the subtractive part. And then the final thing is this thing called an amplitude envelope, which is basically controls the sort of contour of the actual audio. So it'll go like, yeah. That would be the amplitude envelope, right? So then you have a whole bunch of really cool, exciting stuff. And this is where the modularity comes in. So you have, it's both modulation and modularity. So you can basically patch things so that one picture right here, those are all literal patch cables going from basically modulation sources to modulation destinations, sometimes actual raw audio as well. But this sort of the idea is that you have things that are modulators, like literally a generator. In this case, I have labeled here LFO. LFO stands for low frequency oscillator. And it literally means something that oscillates very slowly. Sub audio, like you wouldn't be able to hear it. Like that would be an LFO at that rate. So you can also have an envelope, which is also a modulation envelope. So those are the sort of your modulation sources, and you can map them to arbitrary parameters. So this is the thing to keep in mind when you look at this. So this is this is the UMG, which is our interface, which is the tool to write your own custom interfaces in UE4. This was made, I would say, 2 or 3 weeks ago by Dan on a Sunday. Because we had this awesome synthesizer, and we're like, man, it would be great if we could actually present a cool interface so that people could see how cool it was, because this is otherwise just a giant structure and blueprint. And so I checked in sort of the Slate UI for the knobs, because that is little C++ code. And then he just went to town and actually built the actual interface, and it's awesome. So I have a pointer, right? Maybe Dan, no, this is on a slide. So I'll just point out sort of where things are, just so you can see when Dan plays this in a second. Over here is the oscillator sources. And there's a whole bunch of parameters, and what that means. You're switching, what type of waveform here, and this only applies really to square. There's a lot of stuff. If you're into synthesizers, this makes perfect sense. Trust me. And just changing, pitch and things like that. So then it goes, Dan awesomely made this here so that you conceptually can see, oh, this is the source, this is the filter. So here is the filter sections. You can select which type of filter, your cutoff frequency. So it goes like, that's the sort of idea here. And then here's the amplitude envelope. You typically define this very stereotypical way to define amplitude envelopes in synthesizers with what's called an attack, decay, sustain, release envelope. This is sort of the time to attack, the time to decay. So, yeah, and this is the sustain. So it goes, yeah, and the release would go, yeah, kind of a thing. So these are the parameters that define that. And then here's your modulation stuff, your LFO1, LFO2, and your modulation stuff. And these are your patch. These are essentially what you would see with patch chords in that first picture I showed you. And then here's just a bunch of effects that we said, why not just throw it on? So the output of this goes into this chain of effects and with a little master reverb at the end and a master compressor. And so the demo is Dan will show this off. So that's the actual synthesizer right there.
Oh, yeah.
So he's changing the low frequency oscillation, mapping it to the filter frequency parameter. He's going to change the waveform here. So now it's a square wave tone.
How about this?
Blends between the oscillators.
We could do.
Detune kind of makes the oscillators go slightly out of tune with each other, which is this sort of like awesome 80s sound. You know? Glide is the sort of portamento going between notes. It has all the things you want in a synthesizer. Add some effects.
Okay.
Got to get some reverb in there.
Okay.
There you go.
How about delay?
That little delay, just touch a little. It's so much, you could play this for hours.
Yeah.
So what's cool about this is that we have it hooked up. Also implicit here is MIDI support. This is MIDI into Blueprint. Dan's an awesome piano player, but we also wanted to show MIDI playback, like actual compositions played back, to not only demo the timing, the new timing capabilities of the audio engine. So he's actually going to play some Bach. Being able to control tempo in real time. And you can change your parameters in real time. And change the filter type. There you go. Make it clicky with a low attack blows.
All right.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Gotta get some delay in there.
How about the phaser?
Yeah, phaser's great. Just add it all. Make it a little louder, wave shape it, get some 2 amplification. Add some compression, why not? Ring modulation's the sort of make it weird button.
That's a good description of it.
So it's pretty slick. It's at the booth. You can come by and play with it in person. You can go to town. I think we can all agree that this is kind of awesome to see in a game engine. I think it's pretty exciting. So, but wait, there's more. So my favorite synthesis technique is granular synthesis. I actually went to graduate school and studied with Curtis Rhodes, who's, if you know computer music, he's a granular synthesis wizard. And I've always wanted to get to write my own granular synthesizer in a game. And GDC was coming up, and I didn't even tell my boss, who's sitting out there, that I was going to do it. I just came in and did it. And so now I can show it to you. It's freaking awesome. So granular synthesis is if you don't know what it is, it's a technique that kind of came out in the 60s and 70s in the sort of tape music world, where people were literally chopping up pieces of tape and looping them. It has lots of practical uses in sound design and tons of impractical uses. It's basically the sonic equivalent of a particle effect in visuals, if that helps you understand it. And it's great for all kinds of interesting sound parameterizations and ways to control sound. And it's actually pretty inexpensive. It sounds crazy, but it's just wave file lookup. But like the subtractive synthesizer is a lot of raw math. This is relatively inexpensive. So visually, this is what it's doing. You load a waveform into memory. That would be the top here. And you have an envelope. What that envelope is can be literally anything. This is actually mathematically a Gaussian. It was hard to figure out how to get this into. I'm not an Adobe Illustrator whiz, but that is a pure Gaussian there. And basically, the idea is you multiply the envelope on the waveform to create over here what we call a grain. And you're actually doing this really quickly. Like, so as you scrub through a sound file, like you actually have like a scrub position through a sound file, and wherever it is, it's generating grains of audio, like spawning grains. And it plays these things with a bunch of different parameters. So for example, I probably should flip the order here, but because I'm talking about grains. But basically, you can change the duration of the grain, like how short it is. So it might sound like or it might sound like could be pretty long grain. You can change the pitch, including negative pitch. Negative pitch would be reading backwards in a sound file. You can change the amplitude. You can change the pan, which technically also means spatialization. I haven't done this yet, but you can totally do surround sound granulation stuff. So like your grains are flying around you or in VR or whatever, so you can have your audio just going all around you. You can also change the envelope type, like I was saying. There's more parameters. You can think of crazy, crazy parameters. And all of these, by the way, can be, I would say, stochastic. You could randomize them, so you can create clouds of distributions of these parameters. And then overall, you have what I would call synth parameters, like how many grains you're spawning per second, where you are in the file, and there's other ones like that. So here's a demo, trippy demo of a real-time granulator.
Yeah, over there.
So this is playing a recording of guitar that Seth Whedon, who's a guitar player, the guy that I showed you earlier from Robo Recall. And it's a short sound file that has 2 chords. Hopefully the second chord's working. And Dan is performing granular modulation in real time.
Yeah.
So he's changing the granular density to make it lower density, short duration grain. So what he has going on is one of the knobs on his slider is controlling the duration of the grain, so he can kind of make it go. The other knob is scrubbing where he is in the file. The other knob is controlling the density of the grain, so that's how he's able to go like. One of them is controlling the pitch. I actually have it flipping between +1 and -1, so you can get reversing effects. And then the bottom 4 knobs are controlling real-time source effects, because why not? So one of them is the filter, another one is a delay effect, and then the last one is a phaser wet level. And of course, it's hooked up to the source effects feedback for the envelope following so that it can light up when it lights up, which is pretty cool. So I think that's also pretty dang cool to see a granulator in a game engine in such a situation. So Thank you. So you're asking yourself, how do I make a synthesizer myself? Let's see, make sure I didn't skip a slide. Oh, I am skipping a slide. There is so before I get to how to make it yourself, the question is, that's all cool, but it's trippy. How do I actually use this in a real context? So we have a demo map to actually walk through some practical applications, and it's kind of like set up like a content example. So we made a video that kind of cuts through the, I would call it practical applications of synthesis and effects.
Yeah. But if they come down on the expo floor, they can check it out.
Yeah, come on and check it out. So this is all real-time synthesis here. He has a knob that controls like the intensity of the alarms. So these are practical applications of source effects.
We're surrounded by infectious underground mutants.
He uses a granulator, some,
We're trapped in the 3rd Street
and then some
Bridge.
source effects to emulate broken radio sound.
You are in violation of Space Treaty.
This is using the
420.
chorus effect.
Please lower your force fields and prepare to be boarded.
Ring modulator.
In ring modulation, yep. This is applications of granular synthesis. This is one file that's being scrubbed and parameterized according to the effect. Dan liked the way it stopped when the water ended. There's a whole bunch more. So come by the booth and play around with it. So the next demo that we have set up is how to make your own synthesizer. So you see all this cool stuff, but how do you do it yourself? So there's only 4 steps. Just like you might make your own C++ class for an actor, you basically just go new C++ class, inherit from a synth component, compile, hot load, and then your synth component's available in blueprints, and you can then go to town writing your DSP library. So Dan is going to, this is totally risky, we're going, so hopefully it'll work. Dan will show the steps to making your own synthesizer from scratch.
All right. Way up.
So he goes up, this is where you would go to create a new C++ class. There's default parent classes that show up, but that's not set up to be a default, so just go to show all classes and then type synth component. You'll see the modular synth shows up there, because it's called modular synth component, whatever. And just say create class. My synth component's fine for our purposes. Wait a little bit. We were thinking about making some music for this section. It's a little bit annoying to wait, but you can look at the compiling C++ code button. So the idea here is I made a map in the background that he'll just be able to slot this new synthesizer in. What it's doing is the sort of hello world of synthesis. It's basically a new class that just plays a sine wave tone that lets you set the frequency of the sine wave tone. I kind of created your own, like a sort of blueprint thing. So if you actually double click yeah, you can show it. So this is the code that actually is created by the code gen. If you hold control and then middle mouse up, you can zoom in.
Yeah.
There you go. He's not a programmer, so he doesn't know. Basically, if you scroll down there, you'll see the on-generate audio. That's feeding out just floats. There's no like dealing with PCM data or anything. That's just floats. You see right there, set frequency. That's using a sort of helper thing I created, which is pushing a lambda. Be very careful about lambdas, but this lets you, so you don't have to worry about threading or anything. You just do the thing you want to do on the blueprint function. That's pretty much it. Set frequency. I'm using an oscillator class that I use for the subtractive synth, so you can just tear it apart and do whatever you want with it. But that's basically all this is. And he'll actually show you how to use it in the level. So this is the blueprint I have set up with some comments here. But basically, he just needs to add a component. His synth shows up. Notice he hasn't restarted the editor, which I think is awesome, hot load. So he just calls set frequency here and connects it to the event that I have hooked up. This, by the way, is going to play some Sporian procedural music sort of ideas. Little melody generator, random notes of a major scale. And then what he does down there is just set up the attenuation structure, so it's 3D, and then he just starts it off. And then all he has to do now is push play. There you go. Yeah, so I made a silly little map that has instances of these blueprints just playing the melodies and lighting up these little orbs with color. It's totally 3D, spatialized, plugged in, has reverb, everything ready to go. And like, if you are a synth writer, this is a pretty cool way to write your synthesis. So the way hot loading works is that you could actually now iterate on your code, try things out, save it, and it'll reload and hot load your synthesizer. So you could literally be writing your C++ code in the context of UE4. I'm going to say it, that's pretty cool. I'm pretty proud of that. So when I was envisioning this back last summer, I was like, this is going to be my mic drop demo. I'm totally going to do this on the stage. But I have one more cool thing to show. So that would be normally like, and I'm done, and like take off, right? But we have Steam Audio. Steam Audio is awesome. So the story of this, real quick, is back in December, I got contacted by the people from Impulse Sonics. Impulse Sonics we have Clint Freeman in the front row. Impulse Sonics is awesome. They've been one of the greatest sort of third-party tech vendors to work with, and it's been frustrating because I've been like, sorry, I can't really support your thing in the audio, and just wait for the new audio engine. They contact me in December, and they say, hey, Valve bought us. You've been working on that audio engine. Is it ready? I'm like, it is. It's ready. Let's do this. And so last couple of months, we got a really nice, deep integration of Steam Audio. It's fundamentally extends capabilities of the audio engine. That's spatialization, reverb, and occlusion. It's a great integration. And we have a lot of ideas on making it better from our experience of just putting this demo together. But it's awesome. And it's still experimental, and it's great. But basically, let me quickly just iterate what it is. There's two different modes of Steam Audio. One is real-time reverb calculation. So it does raycasts around the source and builds a model of the reverb in real time, and does indirect reflections off of surfaces, and it sounds awesome. The other one is a baked version, so you can actually create impulse response reverb that perfectly emulates the effect of the environment at those source and listener pairs. It's pretty complicated, and I'm running out of time, so I'll just show you the demo. But it's awesome. So before I preface this, or before we play it, I want to preface this with that this is a pretty reverberant room, so it's not really the greatest environment to hear subtle reverb effects because it's getting colored by the room. Not that I want to apologize for it before you hear it, but just if you're like, that, I can't tell, it's probably because of the room. Yeah, crank it. So you're hearing the audio going over that little thing. So you're hearing reflections off the surfaces around you. When he walks out into the open area, there isn't very many surfaces and it sounds much drier. As it comes into the tunnel, it'll sound like it's colored by the tunnel. So stop by our booth to get it with headphones so you can really hear the effect. This is, thank you. So basically, what we want to do in the future, so now we have the sort of underlying structure. What we want to do is, for the next year, start focusing on better tools for optimizing workflow. That's better tools for profiling, tracking down what your audio is actually doing, being able to drill down. There's a lot of ideas that we have on fixing those issues. We obviously want to keep pumping out really cool new synthesizers and effects, because that's really fun. We want to have better integration with some of our other really awesome UE4 tools like Sequencer, Niagara, Persona, a lot of our animation tools and physics systems. Like we saw in our keynote, some amazing stuff going on in Sequencer, and seen the capabilities of the audio engine, all these other epic programmers are like, how am I going to get this into our tools? You know? So I think there's going to be a lot of integration possibilities. I have a lot of ideas for better utilities for processing sounds and asset management. I think we have all of these awesome assets. Why not make it more like the kinds of tools that sound designers are used to for managing, sorting, tagging, editing? Like we can do all kinds of cool stuff within UE4 itself. Obviously, we need better support for asset formats. This restriction on 16-bit audio imports, WAV file only, not support for actual surround sound. There's all kinds of stuff. I'm aware of all of it. There's basically anything that you've ever, if you're a sound designer and you've like, man, UE4 is just, why did they do it that way? I'm probably thinking the same thing. Anyways, I think that's it. Any questions? I guess this is question time, right? Or clapping time, I don't know. I think I had like literally 1 minute to spare. I think I hit like 1 hour exactly.
So the synth that you built, that you just showed up there, is that going to be available?
Which one, the Subtractive or the Granular?
The interface that Dan built.
Yeah, I don't know how, but maybe the content example, I don't know. So it's one of those things, it's a UMG, and it's like a level, it's a widget. So yeah, we could probably make it available, but maybe put it in a plugin. We'll think about it, maybe so you can use that as something to play with.
Cool.
Yeah.
Aaron, awesome stuff. I was wondering specifically about how channel agnostic synth classes are specifically.
How
Like,
what agnostic?
Channel.
Oh, channel agnostic? Great question. Do you mean like mono stereo channels?
Yeah, whether you can make a singular synth that is designed specifically for mono versus multi-channel.
Yes. So right now, because I wanted the synthesizers to easily support 3D audio, and we only support mono and stereo spatialization right now, I restricted it to 2 channels max.
Cool.
But you can set it to be a mono synth as well, like
Awesome.
mono channel synth.
Gotcha.
So, but I would like to do actual surround sound synths, especially for things like the granulator, being able to, like, in a multi-channel environment, spawn grains through space. Would be awesome.
Totally. Thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you so much for the talk. About the subtractive and the granular synthesizers.
Yep.
So you were controlling them with MIDI.
Yeah.
It was MIDI going in.
To Blueprint. Basically, it was MIDI to Blueprint, Blueprint to a Blueprint API.
Okay. So in like a traditional synth, you usually are controlling it with MIDI or like with a clock or something. So
Right.
what data is going to be driving that in the blueprints? Is it anything? Is it
Anything.
It's literally anything. It's just, the Blueprint API is like, set oscillator 1 frequency, and then you give it a float value.
Okay.
So whatever gives that float value is whatever you want. In fact, we had a demo plan that we cut just because it was too risky. You guys familiar with Mayo armband control? It's like a thing that you put on your arm and you get all this stuff. So we had we hooked it up, and Dan built this awesome patch where he's just like, it was awesome, but it was just too much like calibration and risk for a live demo. But that's an example of some bizarre, motion controller sort of setup that can drive something in Blueprint. So literally it's unlimited. You can do anything.
Cool. Thank you.
Hi. I'm really enjoying seeing what's here now, and I'm excited to see what's going on in the future. I was just curious, do you have any plans on allowing external VSTs? I see you have your own oscillator and everything, but are you willing to bring on stuff like contact libraries and massive?
So almost all of that stuff immediately gets bogged down in licensing and those kinds of issues.
Yeah.
Because the general principle of Epic is anything that we offer needs to be offered unconditionally to our licensees. So, like for example, the Steam Audio thing, we were waiting till weeks to make all the agreements so that we could just say, you could use it, have fun, without any kind of worry about licensing. So that said, the API that I wrote is dead simple and intentionally written so that anybody could write to it. So any third-party person who's making VST effects should very easily be able to just port it to UE4 if they wanted to, because it's just a DLL. You can load any DLL in an external plugin. As for specifically being a VST host, again, that's a licensing issue. But technically, it's easy. Like it's totally doable. I just need to load the, VST API, implement their interface, and load their DLLs. So yes, but it's probably legal kind of things which maybe we could work out. I don't know. We'd have to talk to some people.
True. And could I ask one more question?
Yep.
I was seeing you playing the synthesizer, but I actually wasn't seeing. So in a traditional digital audio workstation, after you play MIDI, you're actually able to see the notes that you actually played and able to manipulate those notes.
Yeah, no, there's no MIDI, what I would call a MIDI sequencer. Mm-hmm. However, we were talking with the sequencer team, and there's a guy that was Tom Sarkinen, who's awesome. We were chatting, and he had no idea about MIDI sequencers and how they work as a tool, and he was like, I'm going to totally do that. So it could be something that we think about integrating into like something like sequencer, which would be the perfect application of that. Like imagine, how sequencer, the whole idea of sequencer in UE4 is like video editing and sort of.
And being able to do that with audio.
Exactly. So imagine a situation in sequencer where you had MIDI control, you recorded your stuff, then you saw your sequencer track, and then you could do all the things that you expect to do within sequencer.
Yeah.
So this is sort of the things that happen at GDC within Epic because we're spread out. I'm in Seattle, by the way. And so we start meeting, Tom is from UK, and we're having beers talking about, wow, it'd be so cool if we did this. So yeah, it's one of those things,
Of course.
Although it is worth mentioning that just for fun, because we do have a MIDI input, I did hook up Ableton Live straight into.
That's right.
Straight into UE4.
Yeah, we actually were thinking about demoing that. He basically created a sort of, because he wrote this whole composition from scratch using MIDI sequencing. He had Ableton Live piping MIDI control data straight to UE4, because it's just MIDI input. Yep. And you can have applications that feed MIDI to different applications. And then he did all his sequencing within Ableton, and then exported his tracks into UE4. But he was able to do his sequencing, hearing it in the game through Ableton Live. So we were thinking about demoing that, but it's complicated. But it's possible, and those are the kind of directions that we were thinking about going.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. Hey, man.
I heard a lot about audio output. Is there any work that has been done about making standardization of audio input across multiple platforms or multiple input devices for the new system?
Squad.
Yes.
You guys are the VoIP aficionados now. I think you probably are the world experts in our VoIP system. I don't have objections to it, but I haven't been thinking about it that much. But yes, I would love to bring in microphone and basically capture devices straight into Blueprint, so it's a little bit easier to deal with. VoIP is a whole networking thing, which is I'm not a network programmer, so that's why that is such a hard thing to deal with, because it's multiple disciplines jammed together uncomfortably. But yeah, I would like to bring in sort of that thing back into the fold so that it's better supported.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Over there.
Yeah.
Hey, amazing talk.
Cool. Thank you.
possibilities. I've never, I mean, seeing any kind of synthesis inside of a game engine live is
awesome.
Yeah, it's just awesome. I have kind of two questions. One is, have you thought about, or is it already like in the works, some kind of like metering or analyzing functions?
Yes, for sure. So that's part of the tool support thing and profiling. When I say profiling, I mean that in a deep, like probably 2 years of work. Like profiling means like tons of work, and that means metering, you know, having better control and monitoring of your loudness levels, you know, like LKFS, having constant monitoring of that so you know exactly what your audio is doing, visualizing what your audio is doing, be able to drill down. So we have a Submix graph editor now. Now we can maybe monitor submixes themselves independently, you know, mute them, solo them, track them, get red, you know, ping ping when you're like too loud, you know, things like that. You know, so basically, that sort of thing.
Okay. And the other thing was, what's the CPU cost? Is Steam Audio with your reverb pretty expensive?
I would say that nothing cool comes for free.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good motto. All right. Thank you.
So I mean, it's up to you where you want to put your resources. The cool thing is that it's all there, so we can optimize it, and there's a community out there. So DSP gurus can go and critique my code. Like that's what's weird about working at Epic. It's like you can look at my reverb. It's a cool reverb, but I guarantee there are people who are like, dude, what are you doing? Make this better. And they'll be like, sweet. Like, so it's, you know, basically it's something we can work together as a community to help make it better, but it's there and it's something to work with. That doesn't mean that it's super expensive. The reverb is running in Robo Recall, for example, and there hasn't been any performance issues. So.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Hey, great talk. Really love Unreal Engine. Oh.
Sure. She said it was the last question, so this is the last question. Yeah.
All right. Thanks. So I had a question about the occlusion and reverb system. Yep. So was it like the ray tracing program that it was?
Yep.
And also, how much customization would we be able to get for like the distance attenuation or like any sort of like if it hits specific objects?
Yeah, so the way the Steam Audio stuff works is you can tag any geometry that you want to have it included. There's part of what makes it a deep integration is actually exposing user controllable parameters in a way that works well. So you can define all kinds of customizations and how it works. You can also define for each material surface type what type of material it is, and if it's not sounding the way you want it, you can make your own material type. All that kind of stuff is built into it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that answered my question.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks a lot, guys.